Welcome back, it's Audi. To my returning listeners, you know what time it is. And if you're new, sit down, crack open a cold one, because you're tuning into the best podcast in the US, streaming from your favorite outpost, 471. Tonight's episode is going to be going because we got drinks, snacks, and stories. Where to start, other than story number one. The Gruber family was just like any other family working on their farm and having a maid be there to lighten their workload. 6 months prior to the Gruber family's expiration date, the maid told Andreas, the father, that she heard disembodied footsteps and voices coming from the attic. Andreas just passed it on as her being a crazy lady and letting it go. Shortly after that incident, the maid got up and left, only to never return. Leading up to their murders, the rest of the family started to experience what the maid was trying to tell them the whole time. Andreas told neighbors that he heard what appeared to be footsteps in the attic, but proceeded to dismiss it. In today's day and age, my ass would be up in that attic, sweeping it like the SWAT team, looking at every nook and cranny, but for some reason the father pushed it off as if nothing was suspicious. And look what happened. Andreas would also mention that he found a newspaper that he didn't buy, nor did it belong to anyone else in the house. Along with the mysterious newspaper popping up, a set of house keys disappeared. Days later, Andreas found footsteps in the snow leading to the back of the house, coming from the woods. Whoever walked to the house didn't walk back. Come on, man, how does this not raise alarm bells? Andreas was offered a gun by a neighbor, but declined it. I can't. How do you let this shit slide? On March 31st, the Gruber's new maid arrived for her first day. That is extremely unlucky. On the evening of March 31st, the Gruber family was brutally murdered with a mattock, a farming tool with one end like a pickaxe and the other end like an axe. I don't know why I described it like it was something different. It's literally just a pickaxe. The 2-year-old Josef was killed in his crib, the maid was murdered in her bedroom, and the other 4 were lured into the barn and killed one by one. Were there really no callouts? Here comes the creepy part. The bodies were not found until days later. Why? Because the neighbors said nothing seemed out of the norm. The cows were being attended to, the dog was fed, and the chimney had a constant flow of smoke coming out. The killer just dead-ass murdered them and then made himself at home. After the daughter stopped showing up to school and the mail piling up outside, neighbors went on to investigate. At first, police thought it was a burglary gone wrong, but that was quickly dismissed when large sums of money were found around the house undisturbed. And that's where it ends. Police went on to interview over 70 people and everything led to a dead end, leaving the Hinterkaifeck murders unsolved. See, that was a bizarre story. A lot of things that went wrong that could have been fixed, but I don't know who just screamed, but if you're tuning in, good luck with that. I watch enough horror movies to not go outside. My ass is staying in here. Now that we all just witnessed another murder by some folklore monster in the woods, let's move on to story number 2. In 1947, Dutch, American, and British ships heard a very strange distress signal coming from the Indian Ocean. The message was sent in Morse code, so I'll translate it for you. All officers, including the captain, are dead, lying in chart room and bridge. Possibly whole crew dead. I die. One ship that received this SOS message was an American ship named the Silver Star. The Silver Star and other ships communicated what they heard and triangulated an area on which they thought the distress ship was located. They were able to pinpoint a ship located at the end of the Strait of Malacca. The ship that sent out this distress signal was the SS Ourang Medan. Numerous attempts were made by the Silver Star to communicate with the Ourang Medan, but it fell on deaf ears. After not being able to contact the Ourang Medan, the Silver Star told surrounding ships that they were going off course to find the ship. Hours passed until the Silver Star laid their eyes on the Medan, only to be dead in the water. If you didn't know, that's bad news bears. As the Silver Star gets closer and the crew were able to see on board, they were shocked when they saw nobody. Nobody's in the bridge, all lights are off, and no one is on the deck waving for help or trying to flag someone down. It's dead silent. Just seems like someone didn't pay the electricity bill. Simple. The Silver Star proceeds to contact the Medan once again with the ship's horn and Morse code, but nothing is heard back. The captain of the Silver Star told the crew that they are boarding and to prepare themselves for what they will see. Once they board the ship, they are immediately greeted with the bodies of the crewmen. This is where it gets weird. All of the crewmen died in the same position. They were all on their backs with their hands up as if they were defending themselves from something, and a look of fear glued to their faces. The crewmen also had a dog to keep them company while at sea, and even the dog died in the same exact way. Fido did not fetch. The Silver Star crew then made their way to the bridge to find more crewmen and the captain all dead, in the same position. The crewman who was sending the SOS signals died directly over the telegraph like he was trying to send a message and was killed during it. The crewmen then entered the bowels of the ship along with the boiler room. With the metal ship like the Medan and no ventilation in the bottom half, it is going to be without a doubt hot in there, but when they entered it was stone cold. They discovered even more bodies, all in the same position. Even stranger, the ship had no damage to it at all. The 12 dead crewmen also had no sign of external trauma. The captain of the Silver Star then decided to leave everything where it lied and to preserve the scene, and tow the ship back to shore. Right as they were putting on the tow line, smoke began to come out of the Medan. The crew, not taking any chances, cut the rope and quickly bailed the ship. Seconds later, the Ourrang Medan exploded. It was described at the scene that the explosion was so big it lifted the ship out of the water, and when it landed, it rapidly sank. And that's where this one ends. People go on to speculate whether the ship even existed, knowing that they couldn't find records of the ship. But it doesn't explain the eyewitness accounts from the Silver Star and the other ships that received the SOS signal. Another theory is that the ship wasn't found on records because it didn't want to be found, transporting illegal and dangerous goods such as nitroglycerin and potassium cyanide. For those who don't know, nitroglycerin makes things go boom, and potassium cyanide is a deadly chemical. A possible leak of these would result in the death of the crew on board in the explosion. But another question pops up with this theory. Why didn't the Silver Star crew die when they boarded and were exposed to these chemicals, leaving the Ourrang Medan unsolved? As expected by such a bizarre story, this left me with more questions than answers. Now, onto the last story of the night. In 1976, a married couple, Mary and Ron Gillespie, lived in a small town of Circleville, Ohio. There's your problem. It's Ohio. Yeah, I'll walk myself out after that one. Mary worked as a bus driver for the local school, and one day she came home from work finding a letter that was directed to her with no return address, although it was postmarked Columbus, Ohio. It said,
"We know you're having an affair with the superintendent of the school. You must stop and come clean and tell your husband. If you don't, bad things are going to happen to you. We're watching your house. We know you have children."
After Mary read the letter, she was obviously freaked out and didn't know what to do, so she threw it out.
Why would you throw it out?
A week goes by and Mary receives another letter. This letter has even more threats.
"If you don't stop this now, we are going to harm you. This is not a joke."
Okay, so we know it's not a hoax and the threats are getting serious. The best choice is to call the police, right? Mary again throws this letter out.
Mary!
The next morning, Ron, the husband, went to go get the mail, and there was a letter. This time it was addressed to him. The letter stated that Ron's wife was cheating on him with the superintendent, and if he didn't confront her and make her admit to it, his life would be in danger. What did my boy Ron do? Ron was suspicious of the letter and told Mary about it, but Mary did not confess, and Ron believed her. Another week passes by when a letter pops up. The guy who was sending these letters has to be the one from Blue's Clues. Why are there so many? Blue always had letters. I wish someone would write to me like that. The letter said,
"Ron, it's been a week and you haven't done anything. You have to get her to admit the truth, otherwise not only are we going to put your life in danger, we're also going to broadcast what she's doing all over town on billboards, radio, and on TV."
At this point, Ron and Mary are petrified. Ron still stands behind his wife and believes that she is not having an affair. They then decide to tell their close friends rather than the police in case it's a hoax.
These aren't love letters, they're threats. Get the police.
The three people they told were Ron's sister and her husband Paul, along with Paul's sister. As the couple tells their inner circle about the letter, Mary believes she might know who it is, but she doesn't reveal who. Mary sent out a letter to who she thought it was, saying that they need to stop or they will get the law involved. After that, the anonymous letter stopped, until a year later in August of 1977. One night, Ron is at home with his kids while Mary's out and the phone rings.
"What's your favorite scary movie?"
Oh, wrong one. But when Ron picks up the phone, his mood changes from being calm to being enraged, and he tells his kids that he's going to confront the man who's been writing these letters. Ron then grabs his pistol, gets his keys, and peels off looking for him. Minutes later, Ron would be pronounced dead. Ron crashed his pickup truck into a tree and died on impact. Nobody else was found at the scene, police stated. It isn't a good story unless there's something weird about it. During the investigation, police found that Ron had fired one round from his pistol. They don't know what he was shooting at or who, only that he fired his pistol before he crashed. At first, the sheriff suspected foul play, but then changed his mind and said that Ron was drunk driving and was 1.5 times over the legal limit. To Ron's family, it didn't make any sense. Ron doesn't drink, and he didn't have anything to drink that day. After Ron's death, hundreds of anonymous letters were sent to the residents of Central Ohio. This dude has way too much time on his hands. Pick up a hobby or something. Do what I'm doing. Talking about you. This time the letter wasn't targeted at Mary or her affair. It was saying that the sheriff in Circleville is covering something up. It gets even more confusing when you compare the letters. At first, he's attacking Ron to confront his wife, and now after his death, he's defending Ron and attacking the sheriff. These letters go on for years until in 1983 when Mary admits she was having an affair. Sorry, I meant this one. Mary was thinking that if she admits to it, the letters and all of her problems would stop, but they didn't. One day at work, Mary was driving her bus route and she spotted billboards and signs saying that Mary's a cheater. She then gets angry and goes to take down a sign, and when she does, she finds a little box with a string attached to it. When she looks inside, there is a loaded gun that has a wire wrapped around the trigger with a slack pulled back, ready for it to fire. What kind of jigsaw shit is this? Had she pulled down the sign from a different angle, it would have triggered the gun to fire. She quickly calls the police. About damn time! The police arrive and begin inspecting the gun to find that the serial number wasn't etched off correctly. The gun was then traced back to Paul Freshour. the brother-in-law. Paul cooperated with police and said that his gun was stolen, but he didn't report it. Fishy. The same sheriff that investigated Ron's death also investigated this one. Double fishy. He made Paul submit to a handwriting test, and after the results being close enough, that swayed the jury to convict Paul. Paul was then sentenced to 7 to 24 years in jail. Case solved, right? Nope. While Paul was in solitary confinement, more letters were sent out again all over central Ohio. But the public still believed that it was Paul. After Paul's 7 years were done, he was put up for parole, but was denied because they still believed he was sending the letters. So, Paul wrote the letters then, right? No. Paul received a letter in solitary confinement taunting him about his parole being denied. Free my man Paul, he ain't do nothing. But this letter wasn't written in first person like the others. It was written in third person, as in we.
We are keeping you in jail for as long as we can. That booby trap is not the only one. It's only a matter of time before somebody else finds one, and you're going to get blamed for that.
That was the last letter until 3 years later in 1993. Paul's parole was up once again. Paul would be granted his parole and be a free man until he passed away in 2012. A popular show came out in 1993 called Unsolved Mysteries. What a quinkydink. The TV show and crew decided to do an episode on this incident. As the TV crew were doing their research, they also received a letter.
If you come to Ohio, you El Secos will pay.
After receiving this letter, the crew decided to push forward with their research and go into Ohio. As the staff went into Ohio, they began interviewing witnesses involved and found a witness who hadn't been interviewed despite making herself available. This lady was a bus driver who drove the same route as Mary. Before Mary took down the sign, the other bus driver passed by and said that she saw a bright yellow El Camino sports car parked near the sign and a man standing at the back of it that did not resemble Paul. After that episode aired in 1993, nothing came of it. No letters, no threats, no deaths. Was it Paul Freshour that was sending these letters, the superintendent, the town sheriff, or someone else just wanting to terrorize a small town? We'll never know, leaving the Circleville letters unsolved. That's going to do it for tonight's episode. I hope you guys got eerily uncomfortable with these events. I will see you all tomorrow at the same time in the same place. Stay safe, stay smart, and stay skeptical. Good night, y'all.